Welcome to the Rustybug podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to the Rustybug podcast, we are here again. And of course, I am your captain today, Tapelo Pukoja, and I'm not driving alone. I've got my co-pilot with me, Pam Harbeck.
Hello, Pam.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm delighted to be here and really looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah. Hey, I'm telling you, I am enjoying being in this space with Pam Harbeck. It's quite different and it's so refreshing moving from the office and coming to the space and just to have like really nice conversation. And today, as you know, we are really focusing on creative arts this month. And I'm quite excited, Pam, about the guests that we have. I think of all the guests we have had, when it comes to creative arts, this one, like, for me, really takes the cup. Like, I don't want to lie to you. It's so different. You know, we've spoken about drama, acting. We've spoken about drawing, visual arts. But this one, I don't know, Pam, do you want to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, I'm delighted to welcome Maxwell Rani.
You got it right.
We've been practicing.
Yeah, you did it so much better than I.
Yeah, to our podcast today. We're delighted that you're joining us for the Creative Arts Conference. I'd love to kick off and just ask you to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Hey. Thank you for welcoming me, guys. I am an African contemporary teacher at the University of Cape Town under the Center for Theatre, Dance and Performance Studies. I'm more on the dance sector or dance section. And right there we do choreography, we do embodiment of movement, we do African narratives, storylines, and how we can embody them. There's quite a lot. And outside, I do a lot of corporate work, and I write a lot as well, and I research quite a lot in my subject. And that's it, I guess. Yeah.
We fortunate at Rustybug, we have African dance as one of our extramural activities. But for those listeners who don't know what African dance is, would you mind just explaining a little bit more about it?
Yeah,
or a lot about it.
A lot about it, I can say that. Because there's no one way to explain it or a paragraph to say it. You have to write a thesis to describe what African dance is. Well, African dance, basically, it is more about the social behavior of the African people who are living within these 54 countries that make so-called Africa and the second largest continent in the world. Well, it is impossible to actually go over all 54 and its people in each and every country. It has plus minus, 50 languages more and a different ethnicity, different cultures, different traditions. But what is beautiful about African dance, it touches things, it touches nuances that is surrounded the African people of this continent. Hence, African dance, it's a very strong and a very influential part of our people in Africa. It is a sense of belonging. It is a sense of an identity. It is more about the past, the present, and the future. And they normally say, if you want to know a lot about African people, join them in their dancing. And then learn their dances, then they will open up to you. So African dance is about that. African dance is about telling stories.
I was about to say that to you. I'm sure a lot of it is storytelling through their dance.
Yeah. It's a reflection of the history as well. What our forefathers went through. It's a reflection of our present. It's a reflection of maybe futuristic as well. We can dream about the Africa of tomorrow. So African dance tap into those things. And African dance touches the issue of religious practices as well. It touches the issues of individualities, how you feel. It celebrates life, it celebrates death, it celebrates graduations in the church. It's everywhere. We breathe African dance. So that's why I was saying it's impossible to say it in one term, what is exactly African dance, because it touches quite a lot of livelihood, and it is a true reflection of the African people. So that's African dance for you.
That's deep, Maxwell. I like the fact that you spoke about a sense of belonging and identity, One would question then, Maxwell, just before you take us through and tell us about your childhood and how you got into loving African dance. I mean, you spoke about it's about the past, the present, and the future. How is it looking in terms of the future for African dance in specific? So we know that a whole lot of things are changing. The society that we're living in is changing. There's so much influence out there. But then how do we keep the African dance music, African dance space, and all of those things relevant in the next 10 years still? Because what we do today does impact what's going to happen tomorrow.
You know, before we tap into it, there is this impression that people have, particularly people of the global community. They think that African dance is stagnant. It doesn't develop. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't grow. It doesn't change shape and all. The African dance of today and African dance of tomorrow depends on the people that live within the continent presently and who will be living in the continent in the future. The interpretation of present spaces, the interpretation of life, the interpretation of culture, the interpretation of social behavior presently depends on those people that practices the arts, that practices African dance. The African dance of today has evolved. It is stemmed out of, or some will say, the DNA of African dance of the past. You can see it in the present. All right. It has evolved. It has changed shape. The African dance of today, I think, is more or less about telling, the society about the ills of Africa, the ills of the country, the ills of our society. That's African dance. It is used now as a tool to educate.
Yeah.
And which is the fundamental part. It's no longer now talking only about the wars that used to happen. It's no longer talking about the traditions that have evolved and find themselves in the spaces of the 21st century. The African dance of the present 21st century now is more of a reflection of the ills and the nuances that we are faced with. The issues of, if I may say, abortion in our communities, the issues of thugs and criminality in our communities, the issue of inequalities when we talk about gender, whereby little girls write and they talk about what they are experiencing as girls in their communities. And the African dance is a reflection of the community. It talks through that. So the African dance of today is a tool used, it's kind of like a catalyst used to educate particular communities. It is a voice, kind of. That's what African dance of today. But today, most of the people, they think that because there's this new way of new word, I think, but it has been existing, I guess. But they call it African contemporary. Because it's in the 21st century. Yeah. So they think that there's a difference of that to the previous one. It is still African dance, but it's just a reimagining it and remounting it in the 21st century. That's all it is.
Oh, I love the fact that when you talk about people being able to express themselves, or like that it becomes storytelling. How many, when you say 54, what do you focus on your GCT? How many, you obviously also, can you do all 54?
No, we can't.
No.
Even if you go as far as your masters, you won't. We normally take what the past Dr. Kariamo Walsh used to say, we take commonalities in Africa when we teach most of the time. Commonalities is this. In East Africa, all right, you can look at Uganda, they call it Uganda, and look at Ethiopia, all right? And they look into other countries that are surrounding that area. There are common ways that they're moving that makes it East African medium of expression. We take the common movements that are used quite a lot. Just like for an example, which is the typical example, when you go to central part of Africa or West Africa and you say you're from South Africa, they say, Zulu dance. So they think that everybody does Zulu dance in South Africa. There are no Xhosa, Tswana, and because it is common, it is more thinking that most of our movement in South Africa and think of traditional and indigenous, they think it stems out of Zulu dance. But at least kudos to them, they know one. So that's what we are doing when we teach African dance. We take all these common movements, the southern part, the central part, the east part, and the west African part. One day we'll have to talk about the north, why we don't normally talk a lot about the north. Which is an interesting part.
Cool, Maxwell. I just want us to now touch on like a child's development. What does an African dance do to a child's development?
Where does one start? You see, let's draw some parallels so that whatever I'm about to say, we don't find ourselves feels like we are in the cubicle or we are in an island.
Yeah.
In other cultures and in other races, they take their children to learn piano for a reason.
Yes.
In other cultures and other traditions, they take their children to go and learn ballet
Yeah.
at a younger age. And it's not of the interest of I'm creating a musician out of that child or I'm creating a ballerina out of that child. There is a particular discipline, a particular embodiment that you instill in a child. That somehow it actually helps the parents in the house. It comes back to the house. You know, dance within children, it enables them to understand themselves. Dance within children, it actually coordinates them because there's this issue of muscle memory that complements the brain itself. So the dance itself, it combines the two. And then meanwhile, while you're looking at the dance, and it creates a highly intelligent body, an intelligent child, and so to speak, because they say a healthy body needs a healthy mind. You know, so it complements in that regard. You'll find your child being very healthy physically and psychologically. Now, if you move more into that kind of genre, your child grows and the child gets to understand their culture or other people's cultures through dance.
Yeah.
Their children start now to learn not to belittle other cultures because there is an information that is instilled in that child about how complex and how different we are, and yet we're living in the space.
Yeah.
And how important it is that we acknowledge each other living and sharing this space, because you are doing a lang arm while I'm doing isizingili, while I'm doing Xhosa dance,
Yeah.
while I'm doing suki suki on the other side. You know, so we're living in one space. So it conscientizes the child. It brings up the new generation that is able to tolerate our own differences. That's what African dance will do, or dance does to a child. And you go further into that, the children, as they grow into intermediate phase, they get to understand when they write their own narratives now. You say, child, write me a story. And when they write that story and you say, can we dance about the story? You find that actually the weighting is different. You find the child is dancing and saying more with the body than the pen. You know, so you find that all of these things, they tap into the cognitive ability of the child. You know, the child is able to solve problem by themselves because you're saying, dance for me, dance about the story that you're writing. The child, you're not going to actually navigate how you should. Obviously, you're sitting in the driver's seat. The child is the passenger. So, but you end up directing here and there. Put on one or two nuances so that you spring up that brain, make it, you know, active more and more and more.
Yeah.
And then this child is doing the thinking. So dance is more effective in that regard when you're talking about the relationship within the dance and the child and putting them together. That's what you get.
Wow.
This takes me back to actually the conversation that we were having yesterday as the community of Rustybug about a sense of like belonging and accepting each other for who we are and being yourself in that space. You know, I think you just spoke so broadly about it. I wish yesterday you were there to put in a comment there and there. Yeah, so I want to speak about obviously the creative arts conferences taking place this year. We're quite excited. It's going to be happening. Can you speak to us about what you're going to be speaking about?
Well, I will be talking about the importance of dance in institutions, the importance of dance in education, you know, spaces, and the importance of dance, that dance as an art form, as a subject, it is imperative to be viewed just like science, just like mathematics, just like social anthropology, just like gender, you know. And I'll be coming more to speak from the voice that is aware of the fact that we don't have to shy away from the fact that most people think that dance is just an extramural activity. They don't see dance as a catalyst to educate. It's a tool to educate.
Yeah.
Dance used to be aligned to mathematics. Dance used to be aligned to geography. You know, shapes in mathematics, shapes in dancing. So that plows back into the class. So I'll be coming more from that, and I'll be coming from the fact that dance is actually pushing more cognitive. Not
Yeah.
all children, by the way, grab subjects by sitting down and being a sponge, being told by the teacher 2 + 2 is 4, all of those things. Some they learn by standing up and doing, and then it ingrains in their brain.
Yeah.
So we need to cater such. So I'll be coming with a voice of such manner to saying that the respect is needed, and we are aware that there is a huge amount of ignorance around the subject itself. And we can't blame people for that. It's just that people are not aware of the information that is out there, the power invested in dance, the power invested in movement, the power invested in creative arts, by the way. So I'll be coming through with that. And then I'll be using African dance and its nuances as a reference to my argument or to my statement, actually. That's what I'll be talking about.
Wow.
Sure. Really excited and really looking forward to that.
Quite impressive. Actually, I learned a lot myself from this conversation. I always say, like, the knowledge that, like, the speakers that we have for the Creative Arts Conference, there's so much like that they can pass on to the kids. And maybe Maxwell, let's then maybe have a conversation about the fact that from an African perspective, right, there's a whole lot of culture that we take from the Western with the kids growing up, like so many things that we now as Africans, we really forget and we start to adapt that. But how do we, again, maybe from an African perspective, how do we keep it alive? How do we keep African dancing alive so that, like, it's not forgotten? And I know there's a whole lot of influence that's happening outside, but how do you keep it alive as teachers, as people in the education space?
Hey, yeah, that's a big one, hey?
Yeah.
It's kind of like individualistic as well, and yet community as well. Individualistic in the sense that this will ask a lot from teachers that are already out there. Some other teachers are educated in a particular way.
Yeah.
And our government has workshops for particular reasons. And I know other teachers, they really do love their weekends and their afternoons.
Yeah.
So they can't sacrifice their time to go into
And their
all of that.
wines.
So I must say that my voice will be coming probably from the place of privilege.
Yeah.
Privilege in the sense that I've traveled probably half of Africa because of what I do and where I am employed, and because I research quite a lot. And so, I mean, this issue is starting from, it's more of a subject matter. It's a subject matter based on comparing ourselves with the global community.
Yeah.
Global community is the one that is setting up the trend. It is setting up the standard.
Yeah.
So the challenge that we have is we want our children, when they graduate, or we want our children to be relevant. When they're watching TV, they don't feel awkward and they don't feel othered. And out of all of that, joining the global community, we compromise ourselves. We forget about who we are, where are we situated in this debate, in this conversation. A very beautiful scholar from Korea who wrote this amazing thing called the Korean Wave, and who wrote about the importance of globalization. Globalization is when you start everything internally, which is at home.
Yeah.
But while you're doing that at home, you realize that it is even embraced globally. So you don't start globally and then move locally. So once you start globally in your own space, you're kind of like foreign in your own zone.
Yeah.
All right. But you are enforcing people to understand that kind of medium of expression, and yet it is kind of like problematic. It is problematic in a regard the fact that our children, they don't even know difference between KwaZulu-Natal and Johannesburg. That's how dangerous it is. When you ask our children exactly where is Botswana, they will, if they didn't take geography, which is just a general knowledge, they will not know. But if you ask where is England and you ask where is America, they will be very quick to tell you even the distance and which flight you can take and what are the languages. So you can't say the education is failing. It's just the system has failed our children, because the education system itself is racing against the global market. So we're saying we are creating scholars that need to be out there, but we're compromising ourselves. That's where the issue is becoming dangerous. We're creating our children who leave us, basically. They leave us because I'll talk about my daughter. My daughter actually has a huge picture of what's her name, Nicki Minaj in a bedroom, and you know, when she grew up, she always says this. No, I want to go to the UK and study law, and I'm like, hey, there's UCT right here next to you that is doing law, and I was like, thinking, I can't compete with pounds.
No, exactly.
I'm like, but the thing is, why would she go all the way? Who told her that actually UK law is better than our law right here at the University of Cape Town? So how did we get there? So the information that is enforced or is being given to our children, somehow we pay the price as parents, and we pay the price as society. Hence, even our languages are disappearing. Now we have to ask a tutor to come at home to teach isiXhosa to your child who have both parents that are Xhosa, and your child is fluent in English.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because for the first time next year, we are actually starting isiXhosa as a first additional language at Rustybug. And we found recently is that a lot of the children are going to high school and they can speak isiXhosa, but they can't read and write it themselves. And we've also just recently we've requested people to help us translate. And I think that's one area that we've realized is that the isiXhosa language is not being written, and it's not being it's just there's no writing, so people don't have maybe the confidence and the understanding, and so that's hopefully something that we're playing a part in, that we realize that children need to have that.
Yes, there's a lady actually at UCT that specializes in that kind of pocket. She's gonna actually beat me. I forgot the name, but she wrote a book as well. She's more of canvassing the issue of indigenous languages in the space, and she is talking about the issue. I think it's core English or cross English or along that. How she's doing it, where actually this thing that is existing in the township, whereby you speak English in a Verde and a Verde, and all of that they complement each other. That language that is new, that blends in between English and isiXhosa, both of them, that kind. And already that is telling you that there's a new language that has been given birth by two urban language usage, because that's very urban lifestyle, all right? And that obviously it's telling you that the originality of the languages, or is it Xhosa themselves, it's questioned when you are actually in the urban spaces. All right, like you can't actually put my child who has gone to urban schools with my cousin's daughter who has gone to Xofumvaba, the villages in this Xhosa. They will never understand each other that deep. The other one will be on a Xhosa A level, the other one will be on Xhosa D. That's how huge the difference is. And it's true, I think it's 70% actually of most Xhosa children in the urban spaces, particularly in Cape Town, they can speak isiXhosa, which is that Xhosa D, and then they can't really write it, including my daughter. To say
crazy.
That's really crazy, and it is scary. So our own identity, our own selves is disappearing right in front of us because we have embraced a Euro-Western culture educational paradigm instead of our own, because we fear that we probably won't fit in Harvard, won't fit in Cambridge. Why are we measuring ourselves with
against
that?
Those?
Why are we measuring ourselves that? It's the amazing things is I've been into the States quite a lot. I taught at Temple University, which is in Philadelphia. I taught in NYU, and I taught at Greensboro, A&T State University, and I taught in Wisconsin, which is in Madison, and I taught in Jamaica at Namibia school. I'm more of a global citizen, by the way, so I'm standing here telling you that there is a lot going on within those structures concerning the interest of Africa. Interest in Africa. And then why are we going to them if they're interested to come to us? You see, what are we trying to do exactly? Are we trying to create a mini-me English here? Or a mini-me country of, Cecil Jordan Rose have done that for us. So what do we have to go back into that? So we need to own up the spaces. The truth be told, if our children do not see themselves in the corridors of our schools, do not see themselves in the televisions, do not see themselves wherever they go, then there is a problem. The shift of mindset of what is important and measurement of cultures and traditions, which one is better than mine, it will exist. So it is important that when we deal with arts and culture, creative arts, we really start to look in Africa first before we go outside, so that they know more about themselves, know more about the continent itself. Do you know the funny part is whenever I start my lectures, in first year level, I always ask this question, so how many countries do we have in Africa? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So that tells you quite a lot. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think this was a very informative, nice cruise. Thank you very much, Maxwell, for your time. We really do appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell Rani.
You can say that.
Okay, cool. If you are interested in joining the Creative Arts Conference, do the right thing. Visit www.schoolscape.com/creative arts. And then alternatively, you can send Pam Heibeck an email, which is pamhei@rgjs.org.za. Thank you. Bye.
Wamkele, 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 kile, wamkele, wamkele.